Cool. Then let's get rolling. We'll start off with Jacob. Where are you at? Where'd you go? There you are. Jacob Turner, go ahead.
Coach, appreciate you doing this. I was just curious with everything going on and the isolation we're in right now, how much of a challenge it's been for you having to, communicate with your guys and still try to coach from afar a little bit and stuff like that. How much of a challenge has that been for you, obviously, because, none of us have ever really experienced anything like this before?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, but it's a challenge everybody else is facing too, right? So I think when you're faced with a challenge, the thing you try to do is, okay, what's the best way for me to attack this thing? And I think Coach Brown's mindset has been that way, and I think we did a really good job. I feel really good about our preparation and how our kids are responding. And the enemy gets a vote, right? So everybody's got to deal with the virus the same way. So our thing is, whatever you get dealt with, you deal with it and try to do it, attack it the best way you can and come out there more positive than your opponents.
Anything to follow up with, Jacob?
I'm good, Jeremy. Thank you. Thanks, Coach.
Ross Martin, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. I was wondering what we can expect to be the major improvements in the defense heading into 2020. What things you'll be able to do better that you weren't able to do in 19?
I think the big thing, Ross, is I think our ability to play play more people will help. I think that will help. There were some lulls in games that I thought were, I didn't think we were very good in early in the second quarter. And I think what happened a lot was started getting a little tired. So I think that'll be a part of it. But I think schematically the big thing will be our ability to play more defensive backs. And I think we basically had to take Dominique Ross and make him a nickel week 5. And he did a great job for us, but there were just certain things we weren't comfortable doing with him that I think when it's a DB with more DB kind of skills, it'll be a better fit for what we, to expand, defensively what we want to be able to do. And I think that's I think you saw that the last 2 weeks. We were able to move Trey Morrison in there some, and probably really helped us, especially in the third downs.
Got anything to follow up with, Ross?
Yeah, having more DBs and playing 6 DBs regularly, how does that improve and make your scheme more versatile and effective?
Well, so I think when most of the offenses we see right now are pretty spread attacks, right? So when you're able to go put 4, 5, 6 DBs out there and play a little bit more aggressive coverage, it gives you a lot more things to pick from. We were kind of forced into playing a lot of zone coverage last year, and we got good at it. But if you can go be a little more aggressive and force the issue a little bit, it helps you a lot. And then I think in the run game, run defense, I think we had some stretches where we got a little bit tired up front, and I think in an injection of rotation, especially at D line, will help us a ton.
Andrew Jones, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. You guys didn't get any spring practices, but some schools got several. Some, I think, maybe even had 5 or 6 spring practices. How much of a disadvantage are you at in that you weren't able to implement any new things at all this spring? And if you only get a fall camp with maybe a couple extra days, how much of a crunch were you being in those early days to get some of those things implemented?
Yeah, I think if it had been a year ago, Andrew, it would have been really hard. I think as a new staff, I think if you're a new staff right now, it's difficult. With the time we had spent with them, I think going to the bowl game and having those extra practices helped a lot. I don't know. I played Division III football. We came back the day before camp started, and we knew what we were doing by the time the game started. So, I'm pretty confident with our kids with what they've been doing. We've been installing new stuff, and it's not the ideal situation because we haven't been able to practice it. But we're going to be able to. Whenever we get back, we're going to be able to hit the ground running with what we want to do in defense.
Thanks.
Where are you at, Luke? There you go. Luke Buxton, go ahead.
Coach, I asked Phil this question last week, and it's more pertinent to you. Tommy Hatton, former offensive lineman with the app Learn to Win, developed by him and some fellow UNC alumni. Kind of talk about, you using that app and what it's done for you, and especially during this time when, an app like this is the most vital with remote instruction and virtual plays.
I don't know how much time he actually had with building the app, Luke, first of all. But, yeah, we used it all fall. I think, kids today are so tied to their phones. We all are, right? So I think anything you can do that gets it information to their phones is really helpful. I think our kids really like it. They like it, if I gave them a paper packet, I just don't know how much that really is something they're used to learning from. So I think now the Learn to Win app has been really good to us. Hopefully Tommy hooks it with some stock options or something, because I think we were the first ones to really get it cranked up. But we're using it right now a ton, and we're using it, a couple times a week with them right now as a complement to what we're doing meeting wise and film wise, and it's been really good.
Anything to follow up with, Luke?
No, that's it.
Good. Greg Barnes, go ahead.
Hey, Jay. You leaned on Jason Strobridge and Aaron Crawford really a lot early last year along the defensive line. Just curious, what did you see out of the guys behind them as the season progressed, and how do you feel about that position right in the middle of the line heading into this year?
When I got here, there was a pretty big gap, I felt like, in the depth between Jason and Aaron, as far as those two had played a lot of football. They were really talented, good, tough, veteran players. And then there was a gulf in the depth between the next group of guys. And so it took us a while for Jalil Taylor and Ray to kind of come along, Tamari Fox to come along. And really by the end of the year, we were really playing Jason outside most of the game. Really Jalil was playing inside more. Jalil was playing way more inside snaps than Jason was. And then Ray really started to come along. And I think we feel I feel really, really strongly about Tamari as a football player. So, I wish they'd let us keep Jason for another year. He's probably going to be a second or third round draft pick. I wish we could get some kind of NCAA rule. But I don't know if he would sign up for that, but we certainly would, because he's a really talented kid. But I think, I think Tamari is going to really be a dynamite player. I think Ray's going to come along really well. And I think Jalil by the end of the season was one of our best 11 players. So I feel really good about that. And I think that's a position that, Tim Cross has done a great job recruiting. So we're excited about those kids coming in, kind of, so that there won't be that gulf in your depth, right? You'll be able to have a sophomore ready to play, a year from now. And I think that's going to be key moving forward.
Anything to follow up with, Greg?
Yeah, I do actually. Jay, you mentioned Trey Morrison a little bit ago. He played obviously nickel as a freshman, moved to corner for you last year. Now that you have quality depth there in the secondary, how do you foresee playing him, using him in the years to come?
Yeah, so I think Trey is a really, really good slot defender. The problem is when you move a guy like Trey into the nickel, the run game that the nickel's got to be involved with. He's a 195-pound kid. How many snaps you're going to ask him to go be a linebacker, right? Because it's a nickel linebacker, right? It's a small linebacker. So you've got to be able to kind of, we talk all the time, but we need to have a big body there, a medium body there, and a little body. And we thought going into the season last year, we could play Trey in there as the third down guy, as second and long against certain personnel groups. And it just didn't happen pretty quickly because of injuries. So I think for sure that'll be a part of our attack moving forward. But I'm not ready to say Trey Morrison is the nickel and that's it. I think he's still one of our better corners. And, we got to, you want to be able to have different guys in both spots, right? So I think it just depends on who we're playing and as the rest of that group grows up a little bit too.
Good, Greg. Thank you. JB, I'm coming to you.
All right. Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Coach, thanks so much for taking out time for us. I have a question about Chaz Surratt as far as what was your plan for him going into his next season, considering the success he had off of his previous season? And does this snag with the pandemic, in the plans that you maybe had for him in spring, does this change anything you planned on doing for him and having him in a better position for next fall?
That's a great question. I think, with a guy like Chaz, the way football is now, with how much time we spend with him in the summers and in the off season, like I don't know how many super live reps he was going to get, JB, because we don't want him getting hurt. So I think it's funny. I FaceTime with him Friday or Thursday or Friday, I don't remember, and I told him he's doing a great job, I think, right now of continuing his education as a linebacker with with film work, with the stuff we're doing install wise, and so I feel really good about how he's progressing. I think being able to watch film with him, I sat down with him a couple times before all this, started, and we're able to just watch his mistakes, and you can watch with him. Football makes sense to Chaz. I've said that a bunch. So, I'm very confident that when we get back, he's going to be a better player than he was when we finished up last year. And then physically, I think he's got some tools that very few people have. So I think he'll be way ahead of where he was at the end of last year. Pretty confident.
All right. Thank you so much, Coach. Appreciate it. Nope, I'm good.
Jonathan, I'm coming to you. Quit hitting the mute button. Go ahead, Jonathan.
So, Jay, how good is Kyler McMichael, and what might he add to you guys' secondary and defense in general?
So I'll say this. I think he's really talented, but I haven't seen him do much yet, Jonathan, So, but I certainly think he's got a skill set that very few people do. So, there's, JB asked about Chaz, Chaz was going to get a few reps and a lot of his mental work and individual stuff. Kyler was a kid I was excited to see him go play. And so I think Kyler's an example of a kid that missed some spring practice, hurt a little more. So, but he's done a great job. We give him quizzes every week, and when he gets one wrong, I call him and we talk about it. And I feel like he's making progress too. But he's got he's a really talented, fast guy.
Thank you.
Bob, did I see you raise your hand?
Yes, you did. Sorry, I lost the mute button. I apologize for that. Or I lost the raise hand button, I mean.
That's all right.
Jay, was there anything, certainly not to this extreme, but when you were at Army, were there any off-season restrictions that you had that you maybe thought were kind of rough at the time that maybe don't seem so bad at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, Tim Cross and I talk about it all the time. We laugh at some of these coaches. At Army, it was not uncommon to get hey, you're not going to have your sophomores on Tuesday. You could spend your whole day complaining about it, or just say, okay, how do we make this work? And I feel like that's kind of how we've attacked this thing. And I think when we do get back together, whenever that is, the staffs that have said, okay, what's the most creative way, the best way I can, we spent 2 hours this morning as a defensive staff trying to find a way to make the film better when we're doing Zoom meetings with our players. I don't know if everybody's doing that. And so I think when it comes back around and we are back together, then hopefully the work we've put in is going to pay dividends, and I feel like it will. Yeah,
So,
you work at West Point now. There's some hurdles, and I think that's and part of that is their training as they're getting ready to become officers, right? The enemy gets a vote. I say it all the time. You better be able to adapt and overcome, and I think that's what we're trying to do.
was there anything else other than the no sophomore Tuesday example that you have that maybe?
I mean, in the summer, they're gone for months. They lose weight. They can't come over. You don't get them. Miles Dorn would come over and watch film all day long on his own. That doesn't happen there. So you got to be creative in the ways you get the information to them. You got to be creative in the ways you teach. You got to practice different. Everything about it there is a challenge. So, but that's what makes a play special.
Thank you.
Good, Bob.
Tell Adam Smith I'm disappointed he didn't join us.
I'll share that.
Please do.
Andrew Jones, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, I got two linebacker questions for you here. The first one, going back to Chaz, what specific things were you looking for him to show improvement in, not just this spring, but heading into the season?
Yeah, I think angles, I think he missed a lot of tackles last year that athletically he shouldn't miss. And I think a lot of it was angles to the football. And I think that comes with experience. I think every week he got better at that. I remember watching it with him. I don't know, this was back in probably February, him and I sitting down watching it and watching some of the South Carolina clips. And he's like, oh, and I'm like, tell me about it, And so I think, he sees now like, some of the leverage issues, I think for sure. And then I think the biggest discussion I've had with him is, we can't draw up every defense where you don't get blocked. So I think, your ability to shed blocks is going to differentiate you between being a really, really good player and a great player. And I think he was ready, and that's something that's hard to get taught in a spring and a summer. That's years of work, and I feel like he's really prepared to go to work at that when we get back.
Go ahead, Andrew.
The other question is, a year ago, the biggest question going into the season was linebacker. Now you have a few guys that are established and have a lot of experience. How do you feel about the depth at that position group? And is it an area where you may not have to play a guy 80 snaps? You could play him 60 and maybe get him better at 60 because someone else is playing 20.
I think Kadri Jackson and Eugene Asante are both young kids that we feel very strongly about. And so I think hopefully they will be able to take some snaps off of Gimel and Chaz's, plate. Gimel and Chaz I think Gimel played every snap. So I think Kadri and Eugene will be able to certainly do some of that. And I think they do some things better than Chaz and Gimel do. So I think we've got to find ways to get them in position to do what they do better. And but certainly, I feel I have no pause whatsoever with one of those kids going to the game, where a year ago we'd have been pretty nervous. So I think that's an improvement in that room.
Good, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ross, you're up.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Kyle McMichael, but I'm gonna switch since that's been asked already. I would think that the defensive line was one area that you would really need the spring for, but you seem so confident about the defensive line. What do you think? What part of your defense is most affected by the lack of the 15 spring practices? And you can
I still think it's the D line. I think it's hard to, the DBs and the linebackers in the summer, when we get back together, they can do 7-on-7 stuff and drill work. D line is a physical, hand-to-hand combat kind of thing. So I think it's harder to simulate that than anything else on defense without practice. And that's our youngest. That's a spot where we've got some really young, talented guys that we want to get reps. So I think that'll be a key when we get back, is to manage getting reps for those guys, at the cost of not stressing out the other positions. But certainly that's the position I'm most upset not being able to practice with.
Yeah, and kind of to go along with an earlier answer, where do you think Strobridge is going to play in the NFL? He played a lot of outside and in the 3-4, but inside as well. What do you think he projects in the NFL?
So I've had a lot of conversations with NFL teams about him. I think in the primarily 4-3 teams in the NFL, they're looking at him as a first down defensive end that moves inside on pass rush downs. I think in the 3-4 teams, I think some of them think he can stand up and be like what Taman is for us. I think some of them think he'll be big enough to be an inside guy, but I think everyone is really intrigued by him because he's a really good player that can do a lot. And, and I think playing in this defense and us moving him around and standing him up some and dropping him some, I think really increased his value, because I think you see him now on film do things that make him more attractive to every defense instead of just certain defenses. That's where I think he's improved a lot.
Aaron Beard, coming to you.
Yep. Hey, Jay. I'm sure you guys broke down the film all last season of when you got done with everything, left and right, every ins and out you could do. I'm curious, have you, with all this extra time, have you gone back and tried to find anything else from it that maybe you missed, or kind of what other resources are you trying to do when you've probably already studied the film from last year as much as you possibly can?
Yeah, we've certainly gone back and I have watched it a bunch more. I think I've spent more time, Aaron, on other looking at NFL defenses and trying to see things they do that fit what we do, more so than we went through it pretty, as a staff, pretty aggressively back in January, February. So, but we certainly, as we're going through it with our players right now from last year, it's a lot of hey, look, let's look at this. This was really good for us, or this wasn't as good for us, and let's talk about why. And then every year it's a little bit different. Every year you take some things out and add some things. So I think I've done a lot more of that right now. Gosh, should I just take this out because we really want to add this? And I think that's where the extra defensive backs start to come in. Because I really think that's the way college football is going. You're seeing people play with 6 and 7 DBs a lot, just because of all the spread stuff.
Anything further, Aaron?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Jay.
Alyssa, coming to you.
Hey, you guys are hot on the recruiting trail. I know this obviously affects every school with this particular time, but how do you hope to pick up that momentum when this is all said and done and you guys can get back at it?
Yeah, I think we're doing really good right now. So, I think our momentum's kind of stayed pretty consistent compared to a lot of teams. I think the challenge for us is when we get back is just trying to get them all back here to see us again. Because normally at this point we've had them on campus 2 or 3 more times. So I think to get us back, and Jeremy released our new building. They did a great job with it. So I think we've got some things to bring them back and see. But no, I think right now recruiting wise we couldn't be any happier.
Anything further, Alyssa?
Just on top of that, all the new facilities and everything that you guys have done to enhance the locker room. So much has been done since you guys got there and Mac got there. And what can you say about that? And I know it's pretty appealing to all these recruits.
Yeah, I work for Coach Brown. He's got a pretty good plan. So I think when he got here, he realized that's a part of recruiting, right? It is you need to have nice things. And I think he's done a really, him and Jeremy, Billy High, Becca High, all of the people that work on those things for us have done a great job. And I think you got to thank Bubba for, somebody's got to pay for it, right? Like I remind my wife when she wants to redo the kitchen, like somebody's got to pay for this. But so Bubba's done that. But yeah, I think we've done a great job, with what we've done with the building, and I think the indoor is awesome. So I think when you get people over here, now it's a pretty easy, you got a great university. Now you got great facilities, and the way things are going right now, we feel really good about our future.
Go to Pat James.
Hey, Coach. Back before all this kind of unfolded in February, Coach Brown mentioned that Christian Varner had been a guy who the strength and conditioning staff had been really impressed by. I guess just kind of what are you kind of looking for from him? Just kind of how does he fit into that D-line group?
Yeah, that's a great question. I thought at the end of the season, right? Like I think those bowl game practices we had, a dozen or so. I thought Christian Varner and Kevin Hester Jr. Those 2 kids were two D linemen that we signed that were kind of had some development when we signed them, and there was a piece to them. You knew they needed to get bigger and stronger, and I was so impressed with how they worked in those practices. And those are 2 kids, we asked about the D-line practice and that I really wanted to see. But, Christian Varner has changed his body. He is big. He's 290 plus. And I think for sure, I think, Christian Varner and Kevin Hester and Kedrick Bingley Jones, those 3 kids are physically the size that, body types that you want to play with. So, but, I think the thing with Christian Varner that's impressed me the most was Brian Hess. Brian Hess just raves about how hard he works and how strong he's gotten. So, yeah, I can't wait to get back to work with that kid when we get back together.
Anything further, Pat?
Yeah, one more. You talked about talking to NFL teams about Jason Strobridge and everything. You have a lot of guys who kind of graduated on that side of the ball who are kind of going through that draft process right now. How much have you kind of talked to those guys that they've been trying to navigate that right now?
Yeah. So what I do with them is I just say, if I can help, let me know. So if a team calls and has questions, I'll call them and tell them, what I think of those kids. I think the thing we've got that's pretty special is, Dominic Ross, Miles Dorn, Jason Strobridge, those three kids, we did a ton with those guys. And they played multiple positions and put a lot of film out there of doing different things. And I think that's really valuable to NFL teams. And then I think Aaron Crawford, his body type kind of limits his versatility, right? But what a year he had for us. So I think all four of those guys have improved their chances. And now it's just, Coach Brown does a great job with the scouts, and I think we're just doing everything we can to help them.
Ross testing the limit of his questions.
Yeah, I didn't see any other questions, so I didn't want to take anybody's spot, but I had one other one. Coach Longo said he wakes up at 4:30 and is working out by 5. I was wondering your day-to-day schedule in terms of meetings and meeting with players. Like, can you kind of give us a glimpse into the day in the life of a Jay Bateman in quarantine?
Yeah, I don't get up at 4:30. So, yeah, I mean, my son gets up at like 6:30 sleeping in, so I get up pretty early with him. But yeah, I mean, so like 2 days a week we meet with our players, and I meet with the linebackers at one time and the DBs at another time. So I kind of work on those meetings in the mornings, getting ready for those meetings, getting the film and everything ready, and I spend time honestly with the recruits. It's texting their moms because they're out of school too. So you do a lot more of that. And then I think the days that I'm not meeting with our players, I'm doing, I'm looking at NFL stuff. I'm looking at opponents. Kind of pick one day a week to work on our first couple opponents, and then 1 week to work on NFL stuff, and kind of go from there. I got my daughter breaking down NFL film. I told Jeff Schottmer today he's in trouble. She knows 2 high safeties versus 1 high safety better than he does. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm trying to make the best of it and try to come out of this, ahead of my opponent when we get back together. That's my goal.
What are those player meetings look like? Like how long and what are you talking about?
So it's basically I did, Ross, is I took we had 15 spring practices, and we don't install for scrimmages. We don't install for the spring games. So you end up with about a dozen installs. So I took those and basically made them into 12 meetings, and and added film to them, and and some of it's new stuff, some of it's stuff we haven't done before. So we've got other colleges or NFL teams film in there with it, and we just kind of go through it with them for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we do that twice a week. So it's about 6 weeks worth of work, and then we're using other things as like the Learn to Win app. I think somebody asked about. We're using some other things to kind of complement those meetings.
All right, gang. That puts us right about a half hour with Coach Bateman. Waiting to hear from Chaz on when he'd like to do his availability on Wednesday, and I will let you all know when I hear from him. Appreciate your time, Coach Bateman, and thanks for everybody for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Coach. Thanks, Jeremy.
Appreciate it.
See y'all.